I never knew silence could sound like betrayal. But the night my husband slammed the door behind me, whispering that I was useless, broken, and a burden he could no longer carry, the world didn't just go quiet. It collapsed. He thought I was broke. He thought I had nothing. Nothing to offer. Nothing to give. Nothing left worth loving. And so, with the same hands that once held my face like I was his entire universe, he pushed me out of our own home and walked away without looking back. If you're here listening to this, stay with me till the end. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to remember that their worth is bigger than the people who failed to see it. Because what happened 3 days later changed everything. My name is Aisha, and this is the story of how losing everything led me to the one thing I never expected, myself. I still remember standing on the porch after he threw me out. My suitcase was small, almost embarrassingly small, as if I didn't own enough to justify a life. The cold air stung my face, but it wasn't the wind making my eyes burn. It was the shocky, the ache, the disbelief. 3 years of marriage, 3 years of compromise, love, arguments, apologies, and all the quiet sacrifices I never spoke about. He threw them away in 3 minutes. He didn't even say my name. Just, "You're done. I can't do this anymore. You have nothing. Go back to wherever you came from." Nothing. That word echoed in my head like a cruel whisper. But I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. I walked down the steps slowly. Each one felt like a truth I had ignored for far too long. The truth that maybe he stopped loving me long before tonight. Maybe I was the only one still holding on. I called my sister, Miriam, because I didn't know where else to go. My voice cracked when she answered. "Aisha, what happened? Are you crying?" I wanted to lie. I wanted to say something simple like, "No, I'm fine." But the kind of pain I felt didn't fit inside simple sentences. He ended it. I whispered. He threw me out. She didn't ask for details. Didn't blame me. Didn't sigh in disappointment like he always did. She only said 2 words, "Come home." And I did. I went back to my sister's small apartment, the same place we grew up in. The walls were still the same faded cream color. The couch was still the same one we bought secondhand years ago. And yet, the moment I stepped inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Real warmth. Miriam pulled me into a hug so tight my ribs ached. I didn't know I needed it until I felt my chin tremble against her shoulder. She didn't let go even when I tried to pretend I was okay. "What did he say?" she asked quietly, brushing my hair away from my face. "That I have nothing," I whispered. She pulled back, her eyes sharp with anger. "You nothing. Aisha, do you hear yourself?" But I didn't hear myself. I only heard him, his voice, his judgment, his disappointment. All the sentences he never said directly but made me feel anyway. I sat on the couch and stared at the wall. I didn't cry, not yet. Sometimes pain is too big to release immediately. Sometimes it has to sit in your chest like a storm gathering strength. Miriam brought me tea, warm, sweet, and familiar, and sat beside me. "I knew something was wrong," she said softly. "He never looked at you the way a man looks at a woman he appreciates." She was right. But hearing it hurt, because I remembered how he used to look at me. Before money became his god, before comparison became his hobby, before I became a shadow of the woman he promised to love. Miriam rested her head on my shoulder. "Stay here as long as you need. We'll figure out everything later." But the truth was, I didn't know how to start again. I didn't know how to rebuild a life from ruins. I didn't know how to silence the voice in my head whispering that I wasn't enough. That night, after everyone slept, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. listening to my own heartbeat, slow, heavy, uncertain. And then it happened. I broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, painfully, like a dam cracking from the inside. I cried until my pillow was soaked. I cried until my chest felt hollow. I cried because losing him hurt, but realizing I lost myself long before he left hurt even more. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My mind kept replaying everything he said, everything he didn't say, everything I tried to fix, but could in single quotes t. By morning, my eyes were swollen and my voice was gone, but something inside me, tiny, fragile, almost invisible, shifted. A whisper, a spark, a strange, subtle sense that maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe being thrown out wasn't rejection. Maybe it was redirection. But at the time, I didn't understand it. Not until 3 days later, when something happened that even he couldn't have predicted. Something that flipped the world he built upside down. And for the first time in years, I wasn't the one drowning. I don't remember much about the night I left that house. Only fragments. The sound of the door slamming behind me. The cold air hitting my face. My knees almost giving out under me. I walked down the street as if sleepwalking. The neighborhood lights blurred, and for a moment, it felt like I was floating outside my body, watching myself break in slow motion. I didn't cry, not even once. It was strange, as if my tears were locked somewhere deep, refusing to come out until it was safe. I checked into a cheap guest house. No one asked questions. They rarely do. People can sense when you're carrying a pain too heavy to touch. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at the wall. I kept hearing his voice in my head. The way he spat those words at me, "You're useless. You're nothing without me." But the louder memory, the one that pressed on my chest like a weight, was the soft sound of his footsteps walking away after he said it, as if leaving me was nothing. I pulled my knees to my chest and exhaled slowly. 3 days. That was all it took for the world to turn upside down. On the first day, I barely ate. I stared at my phone, wondering if he'd call. Not because I wanted him back. I think a part of me had already detached, but because I wanted to know if I mattered enough for even a moment of regret. He didn't call. Instead, my sister messaged me. It was just one sentence. "Come stay with me." No questions asked. And that broke something inside me, because that was the gentleness I had forgotten I deserved. I didn't go to her though. Not yet. I wasn't ready to face her, to explain myself, to admit how far I had shrunk inside that marriage. That night, I walked outside and bought myself a cup of tea from a small roadside stall. The man had kind eyes. He didn't rush me. He didn't judge me. He didn't ask why my hands were trembling. He simply placed the cup in front of me and nodded with a smile that said, "You're safe to breathe here." It made me realize how starved I had been for basic kindness. On the second day, I opened my phone and saw something that made my heart stop. A message from my bank. I blinked. I reread it. My breath hitched. My account, the one he never cared about, the one he thought held nothing, had received a deposit. A huge one. Not a lottery. Not a miracle. But my investment. The one I had quietly nurtured for 3 years. The one I told him I was trying, but he always laughed at, saying I was wasting time. The startup I invested in had finally sold. And the profit I received was more money than he had ever made in a year. I covered my mouth with my hand. My eyes burned, not from greed, not from triumph, but because I had stayed silent for so long, believing his words, "You're worthless. You have nothing." And now, in that small guest room, the universe whispered back, louder than his voice ever had, "You have always been more." I stared at the number again. I could breathe. For the first time in years, I could breathe. On the third day, I packed my few clothes into a bag and checked out of the hotel. Not because I had nowhere to go, but because I felt a strange clarity settling into my bones. Before going anywhere else, I went home. Yes, back to the place where he threw me out. Back to the man who thought he had broken me permanently. I didn't knock. I used my key, the one he forgot to take from me in his anger. When the door clicked open, he rushed into the hallway with wide eyes. He looked rough, unshaven, tired, like someone who hadn't slept in days. "Where were you?" he asked, his voice almost panicked. I shouldn't have felt empathy for him, but I did. I always did. It was both my gift and my curse. He looked me up and down, as if confirming I was real. Then he said something that nearly made me laugh. I thought, maybe something happened to you because he needed me. Not because he loved me, but because his comfort was tied to my presence. I walked past him, my heart steady. He followed me into the living room. "Look, maybe I overreacted. You came at the wrong time. I was stressed. You shouldn't have left like that." I stopped walking and turned slowly. "You threw me out," I said softly. He blinked, then shrugged like it didn't matter. Like it was just a detail. "Well, you shouldn't have provoked me. You know how I get. If you hadn't made me feel like I was failing." I closed my eyes. There it was. The same script. The same excuses. The same blame. Something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was detachment. My phone vibrated in my pocket. He glanced at it. The name on the screen appeared. A bank notification. He frowned, then frowned deeper. "What's that?" he asked sharply. "Why are you getting bank messages? You don't have anything." I let the message pop up. I let him see the number. I let him choke on his own shock. What is that? Where did that come from?" His voice cracked like dry wood. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. In that second, I watched something change in his eyes. Fear. Regret. Realization. Not because he lost me, but because he realized he had thrown out the woman who was not broken, but rising. He reached for my arm. "Wait. Let's talk. Don't be stupid. Come back home. We can fix this." I didn't mean anything I said. And for the first time, I didn't flinch. I didn't crumble. I didn't shrink. I gently pulled my arm away. "I came here," I whispered, "not to return, but to close the door properly." He shook his head as if refusing the reality forming around him. "You can't be serious. You have money now. Great. But you still need me. We built a life together. You can't walk away." I looked around the house, the walls that once trapped me, the corridors that held my silence, the rooms where my voice slowly faded. Then I met his gaze. I didn't walk away. I said softly, "You pushed me, and now I'm finally choosing myself." He swallowed hard. "Don't do this," he whispered. But I already had. I placed the house keys on the table. My last tie. My final goodbye. Then I walked to the door. He called my name once, twice, but I didn't turn back. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally cared about myself more. I stepped outside, and the air felt different. Lighter, cleaner, like the world was welcoming me back. I wish I could tell you that healing came softly to me, that it arrived like a sunrise, gentle and warm. But the truth is, healing felt like standing at the edge of a cliff and finally letting myself breathe. After years of holding it in, 3 days after he threw me out, 3 days after he chose money over me, 3 days after he said I was too heavy, too expensive, too useless, my life stopped being about survival. It became about rebirth. And that's where part 3 begins. Before I continue, if you've stayed this long with me, thank you. If this story touches you, please like, subscribe, and stay with me till the very end. I promise, this last chapter is the one where everything changes. People think revenge is loud, explosive, a dramatic confrontation, a shouted truth, a broken glass. But real revenge, the kind that life crafts slowly, is quiet. It's the sound of a woman learning to love herself again. The sound of healing. The sound of becoming someone he never believed she could be. After securing the contract they rejected me for, my days changed. For the first time in years, I was busy, not with chores, not with guilt, but with purpose. I was sitting in meeting rooms filled with people who valued my ideas, who listened when I spoke, who said we need you. Every email that came with my name on it, my real name, felt like a piece of my soul returning home. My evenings were filled with quiet victories, learning to sleep without fear, learning to cook for one, learning to smile alone. But my ex-husband, his world, was unraveling. And I didn't even have to be there to see it. My phone buzzed one afternoon. A message from his sister. What happened between you two? He's not himself. He's staying at our place temporarily, meaning his new wife had already begun to see him for what he truly was. People like him are always charming in the beginning, until the mask slips. Later that night, another message arrived. This time, from him. Just seeing his name on my screen made my chest tighten. I hesitated before opening it, but I knew I needed to read it. I need to talk to you. Just once, please. I didn't reply, not because I wanted to punish him, not because I wanted to play games, but because I no longer felt the same burning pain that once made me crave his apology. I had outgrown the version of myself that needed closure. But life didn't stop there. A week later, I ran into him, not intentionally, not dramatically, just life doing what life does. I was walking out of a cafe after a business meeting laughing at something my colleague had said. And there he was, standing on the sidewalk like he was waiting for the world to give him back something he'd lost. He froze when he saw me. He looked different, smaller, defeated. Like life had finally made him taste the emptiness he once fed me. I felt my heart race, but not with fear, not with longing, with clarity. He stepped forward slowly. Can we talk? He asked quietly. His voice wasn't arrogant anymore. It wasn't commanding. It was broken. I simply nodded once. We stepped aside, near a quiet corner of the street. He took a breath, his eyes glistening with something I never thought I'd see in them. Not love, but regret. Everything fell apart, he said. My business, my marriage, everything. I thought you were holding me back, but I see now. You were the only one holding anything together. I listened, silently, just like I used to. But for the first time ever, I wasn't doing it for him. I was doing it for me. I didn't know you were working on something so big, he whispered. That contract, the one your company won, everyone talks about it. It's everywhere. And when I realized it was you, he swallowed hard. I've never felt smaller. His eyes locked on mine, filled with an ache I could finally recognize. Not love, not longing, but the realization that he had thrown away the one person who truly believed in him. I miss you, he whispered. I want to make things right. Come back, please, for a moment. The old version of me trembled inside. The woman who once begged for scraps of affection, who waited for him to choose her, who stayed even when she was breaking. But that woman was gone. I breathed in deeply, letting the cool air fill a space inside me that no longer belonged to him. I'm not coming back, I said softly, not cruelly, not angrily, just truthfully. He blinked, stunned. as if the thought had never occurred to him. You left me when you thought I had nothing. I continued. But these past weeks, I learned something you never taught me. His voice cracked. What? That I was never the one who had nothing. You were. For the first time in my life, I saw the truth settle into his eyes, slow, painful, undeniable. I don't hate you, I added. I don't need to. I'm finally free. He reached out slightly, as if his fingertips could pull back time. But I stepped away. Not dramatically. Not angrily, just. Finally, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there with the weight of his own choices. My heart didn't ache. My hands didn't shake. I felt light, not because I defeated him, but because I reclaimed myself. That night, sitting on my small apartment balcony, the city lights glowing like scattered stars, I finally understood something. Sometimes life breaks you so you can see your own pieces and put them back together in a shape you were always meant to be. 3 days after he threw me out, my life began again, and today, I'm not the woman he abandoned. I'm the woman he'll never get back. And that is the most beautiful ending I could have asked for.